Okay, real quick, this is how this works. So you can see if I can get it to change brightness. See the pinion gear back there, right? That pinion gear, driven by the yoke here, that yoke splines onto that pinion gear, which has two bearings sitting, one here and then one back here in the case. And that's what's wore out. All right, but that pinion gear goes against this ring gear right here, right? And that's what drives the wheels round and round, right? I'm pretty sure you already knew that, all right? But this is the differential, and some people call it the carrier. So the differential ring gear carrier, right? And this ring gear is bolted to this differential housing. This is all big, one metal piece, right? So what happens here is you can see the end of one of the axles in here, that bright piece in the middle there. So the axle goes through the tube to the tire, right? And you put your wheel on here. But that axle is right there, that end right in the middle. Okay, so the end of that axle is splined, right? And you can see where these splines were riding, right? And that's what the axle looks like out if you haven't seen it. But those splines, and I took this one out, ride in, they spline up with this side gear, right? So that one's still in there. You can see it's pushed through. All right. They spline into this side gear. Behind these gears in this case, between that gear and this case, are flat clutches, at least in this one. There's also cone clutches that I prefer to use cone clutches because they don't wear out as fast. Matter of fact, I've never had a set wear out. These flat clutches wear out pretty quick. But anyways, flat clutches between this side gear and this case. All right. So then what happens is you have those side gears, right, which have those clutches behind them, and then there's usually a spring. This is a little different. Chevrolet does it a little different. There's a spring, some kind of spring tension that'll push those gears out against the clutches so that as they're loaded up, those clutches will apply to this and both wheels will run, right? So as it's loaded. So this piece right here has teeth on it. It has a little gear on the inside here. If I could turn it. You see that little gear? That little pinion gear there? Up in there? All right, well, though that pinion gear rides on these side gears. So if one side's going faster than another, like it's driving it, one side's going, and you're making a left or a right turn, right? One side's going to go faster than another. What will happen is that gear, which these little bitty gears, right? Here's, I took the pin out. Here's the pin, the cross pin. Right? Will ride on this cross pin, right? That cross pin goes through here and keeps those gears, allows them to spin as they need to. So one axle can go faster than the other if this one was going slower, right? So if you were making a right-hand turn, this axle is going to go slower than that one, right? So that gear can go a little faster if it needs to than that one, right? While it rides on these little gears that are inside this case, right? So that no matter what, as the pinion's being driven, so is the ring gear. This case is turning, right? And as the case is turning, that pin is turning those little gears against these side gears, right? Which will drive the axles in a perfect world going straight. Now, if you make a turn one way or another, one side will go faster than another, whatever side you're doing, right? But this will allow it to differentiate, right? That's where the name differential comes from. That'll allow it to differentiate so that you can still go forward and make a turn with one axle going faster than the other. All right? Now, the limited slip part of it is where these clutches come in behind these side gears as they're forced outward So you'll notice these teeth are kind of, on these gears, are just really wide. They got a real wide angle on them. So as it's driven by these little gears here, it forces those gears to want to go away or towards the outside, right? Makes them want to force out. That force puts force against the clutches and makes both axles go at the same time forward, right? And that's where you get the limited slip part of that. Some people call it posi lock, Ford calls it traction lock, but limited slip is really what it is. So if you can see that, the yoke turns the pinion gear, that pinion gear turns, which drives this ring gear, which turns this case, right? It's attached, this is bolted to the case, the ring gear carrier for the differential, which turns that cross pin, which is bolted through this case, right? And you can see that pin right there. And on this pin, spin two little gears, which mesh with these side gears, right? Which are splined to the axle. And you can see there, I'll show you the C-clip that holds them in. Once you take that cross pin out, you can push the axle in and take the C-clip out. Let's see if I can push it with one hand, it's a little dirty. All right, yep, I forgot, got to take the pin out. All right, so here's a pin. All right, push that in. All right, the axle comes in a little bit, and then right there you can see that C-clip. And usually what I'll do is I'll take a magnet, like that, and then just kind of walk it until I can get it to come out. See, this thing's got like a little shield on it. See if I can get it to come out. I gotta get it to go the right way. All right, anyways, it's kind of tight in there. But this is what the C-clip looks like. C-clip goes on the end of the axle here. If it'll fucking focus. Right, when it goes through that side gear, that C-clip goes on like that. You put that center pin to go through the differential. That'll be up against that center pin, that cross pin, which will not allow the axle to come in, so this C-clip will stay in. It's got a little groove on the inside of that side gear that holds it. You take that cross pin out, then you can push the axle in, right, from the outside, and you'll get access to that C-clip, and you can take it off. But anyways, that's the basic, simple explanation of how differential works using your truck.